They're recording. Welcome, everybody. So let's take a few moments just to be here. Usually in rushing to the next moment. If you notice anything that's, I mean, first of all, if it's just very nice just to rest here, then that's good. But if you notice anything that's restless, maybe just be grateful that you can be aware of that and that you can give space for that. Notice your attitudes, your habitual reactivity toward whatever is restless, or unsettled, or uncomfortable. And just notice. It's really so simple, but so powerful. You might notice what you do in your body. You might find that you hold your breath or you brace yourself, clench your jaw, try to make it all comply with your will. So you can do it right, get it right, be right. You could just notice all of that and then see if there's space to breathe. So sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves. When we get ahead of ourselves, then we're well, we probably feel out of sorts. Probably don't feel quite right. And then we try harder. Think that maybe if we could just get a little further ahead, that would help. A lot of people interested in getting ahead. Don't want to fall behind, which makes sense. But consider really, we don't want to be ahead nor behind. Neither can you really be ahead nor behind, but we we try awfully hard sometimes. So then there's the uncomfortable truth, which is wherever you go, there you are. No matter how far ahead you get, there you are. And I think we're taught to have a violent attitude towards ourselves in this extreme way in which we even imagine that we are supposed to get rid of ourselves entirely. We've been told that we're to blame. And who is this? Who are we referring to? I mean, we're talking about the ego, that devil. So we're taught that there's this, like, so there's the ego. We're taught this. I mean, we're taught there is the ego. If you're not taught this, then, or you're not desperate to figure something out, then you would never, I don't think you would come upon this. I don't think you would invent this otherwise. It's only out of desperation or out of inculcation that we come upon this insanity that we are the problem and the ego is the problem. So we're searching for oneness. Oneness will be the solution. Right after I've gotten rid of that pesky ego, devil. So we're working to get ahead of ourselves. Beat ourselves into submission. Finally kill the ego. And we wonder why we feel so terrible. then maybe we hear some talk about how effortless it is. Yeah, I'll try harder to get to that. Just got to get rid of that ego. The ego is the only thing that's in my way. When I can finally get rid of it, then it will be effortless. But you can't trust the ego, that devil, because it's always causing problems. It's always making me so uncomfortable. It's always crying, complaining, moaning, whining. Then we hear it's not only just all one, it's all love. Oh God, I'd love that, wouldn't I? I'd love just love. Nasty ego's in my way though. Boy, it's gonna be great when I can get me some of that love after I kill the ego. So we're sending a lot of mixed messages. We're working at odds with ourselves. All in the name of transcendence. So it's a big lie, though. I mean, hopefully that's kind of clear, right? You're not going to get love by killing the ego. You're not going to get ahead. You're just going to generate a lot of confusion. So this enemy, whether we externalize it or internalize it, whether we call it the devil or we call it the ego, or whatever we call it, are we sure? You know, the interesting thing, and I mean, I'm sure theologians have puzzled over this for a long time, but you know, there it is. God is omnipotent. God, the creator of all that is, creator of light and dark, uh, creator of all the angels, including the fallen ones. So God does not have God can't have a real problem with the devil, you see. I mean, if God had a real problem with the devil, it'd be as easy as that. So all this idea of war and violence, maybe, possibly, is incorrect or an incomplete view, and one that only maintains the pain that we're seeking to resolve. And isn't that why we're here? We want to, that isn't that what we're interested in? We're wanting to resolve the pain. I mean, we can dress it up. We can say that we're, and there's some truth to it. You know, we want love, we want bliss, we want peace, we want all these things. But what drives that? Isn't it the simple fact that what drives that is the pain? It's desire to resolve the pain, longing within us. So how are we going to do that if we're at war? The thing about war is that it generates a lot of urgency. You know, you're in the heat of battle. You don't have a lot of time for contemplation. You just take your orders and you do what you're told. There's the enemy killing. And perhaps you can see that's how most of our lives go. Is just there's the enemy, kill him. We're constantly at war. There's the enemy, kill him. Oh God, it's an ambush. Quick, kill the enemy. You never know. The enemy's got landmines all over the place. You could be attacked at any moment just when you think it's all safe. So you got to be on guard. It's war, constant war. The real you, the good you, the virtuous you, the spiritual you versus that devil. The devil is whatever you say it is. Got awful lot of ideas out there about what the devil is. I mean, in some cases there's a literal devil, an embodiment of evil, that and temptation and sin. Some people believe in that, but then, for some people, the devil is a person with a different colored skin, a person with a different religion, or the racist, or the bigot. That's the devil. The liberals are the devil. Conservatives are the devil. Men are the devil. White people, definitely the devil. Upper class, the devil. Shape-shifting aliens, definitely the devil. NASA is the institution of the devil. Harvard, that's probably the devil. Gluten, that's the devil. Sugar. But then it's my feelings are the devil. This anxiety is the devil. My depression is the devil. This headache is the devil. My failed relationships are the devil. My grief is the devil. My hard-heartedness is the devil. My inability to pray successfully is the devil. My inability to meditate successfully is the devil. My cognitive deficits are the devil. On and on, you see. It's just, there's no end to it. So I don't know if anybody told you, but we're at end times now. I'm sure it's always end times. Certainly anytime there's a new American president elected, it's end times. I'm sure it's been that way since the very beginning. The beginning being the foundation of the United States of America, because that's the thing that everything in the universe revolves around, just in case you didn't know. But it's always end times, but it's end times now, just in case you didn't know, it's end times. I mean, my goodness. Self-driving cars. So we're at end times. And what happens at end times? It's the end of time. So it's the end of time. We're being squeezed. The war is coming to a head. This is a magnificent battle. It's the climax of the battle. Things raging. You can feel it inside, can't you? Behind all of our conditioned social niceties. There's a scream inside, this, like the battle cry, going for it. Pick up your battle weapon choice, whatever it is, an axe, machine gun, sword, spear, whatever, but charge. It's underneath the surface of those social niceties, it's like that. I mean, it's end times. You go anywhere. Certainly go into most stores. Not a lot of happy shopkeepers anymore. So we're falling apart and we're being squeezed. And it can seem desperate because the urgency is so intense. You got to do something. You got to do something. It's war. Can't let the devil win. Everything's on the line. It's the forces of good versus the forces of evil. It's the oldest story. Second oldest story. First oldest story. Second oldest story. It's one of the old stories. Good versus evil. And you, of course, are on the side of good. Fighting the devil, so you got to win. Can't give up. But now here's the question. Who is this devil, really? And who will you be when you've exterminated the devil? And are you sure that's what you want? We can see how on the global scale how this plays out, right? We see there's certain things you can't undo, right? You just see that's once some thing, someone, some species, some ethnic group, once it's exterminated, once it's gone, once it's extinct, you're not going to undo that. So be sure. Be sure. Are you sure? Be sure you want to really exterminate the devil. interesting thing is that well, just notice that tendency to leap into action in the heat of battle. But do you know what this is? You know, it's like the well known to me, probably well known to most people, the expression, uh, I'm just the messenger, or don't shoot the messenger. You know, so you can imagine you as this virtuous spiritual self sitting on your throne in your very spiritual castle. Uh, the messenger comes in and says the devil's outside, and you get all worked up and you shoot the messenger, and then you, all right, get get the army together. We're gonna go out, and you go out and you kill the devil. Only then do you find out that the message, there was more to the message, you see. You shot the messenger before the messenger got to say the whole thing, and you killed the devil before the devil could tell you himself. And so the question is, what is that message? You shot the messenger. Shot the messenger. So now we've got to do what now we've got two choices. We go do battle and try to kill the devil, or we can do the thing that almost nobody even thinks to do, much less is willing to do, which is let's go hear it directly from the devil's mouth. And the thing about the devil's mouth is uh, devil isn't actually big into yelling and screaming. That's more like that's more God's side of things. The devil likes to whisper. So you got to get it real close. And you so close that you can feel the devil's breath on your ear, devil's forked tongue tickles your ear a little bit. You got to get real close to hear it. You have to be really quiet inside to hear it, because if you're because there's so much noise. You know, you've got your whole army there and they're all ready to go. Come on, let's kill him. He's the devil. And you're like, shh, shh, shh. But they're what they are. So they're trying their best to be quiet, but come on, let's kill him. All the armor clanking and everything. So you got to get real close and you got to be really quiet. You can't even your breathing has to be very quiet so that you can hear. all the things that we've been told about the devil, how the devil is going to try to tempt us, steal our soul. I will be condemned to eternal damnation and all these things. There's a movie a long time ago, well, not that long ago, but a couple decades ago, probably in the must have been like early 90s, late 80s. It was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it was there was a character in the in the movie. The character's animated, and she's Jessica Rabbit. She says, "I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way." Sort of like the devil. There's a message here. Let me look at it. So it says, I feel like exterminating unnecessary effort. I see that as the devil. There is a strong resistance to being aware of that. In high intensity, the resistance blurs that. Sometimes I may be idiotic and not choose to open up. I'm not sure why I make that choice. Yeah. So then what I would say about that is notice the tendency to make it into the enemy and how that we have learned how to so we have learned we learned we were taught to divide. You see, we were taught that there's a good and a bad, and we were taught that we must be good. And so all that we have been taught or learned or come to believe is bad, we try to distance ourselves from, and we project that as the devil. And so then this unnecessary effort is the mechanism by which we maintain this false divide. So we can correctly identify the nature of the suffering as the unnecessary effort. However, if we filter that through the same paradigm of good and bad, me versus the devil, then what are we doing? We're using unnecessary effort. So we're compounding the very thing that is the essential suffering. And what I'm proposing is, I mean, we're advised by many people who have much greater spiritual authority than I do to be like children. Now, what does that mean? I mean, what does it mean to be like children? Because that could mean a lot of things. Does that mean run around and scream and refuse to go to bed and climb up on things and jump off of them and eat candy until you have a bellyache? I mean, no, it it's to have the the innocence of the child, the innocence that can look and see, you know, the story of the emperor's new clothes, where the emperor is conned into. There's these two con men who say that they're tailors and they're gonna make the finest clothes, but there's only one thing about this, is that fools are unable to see the clothes. Only very intelligent, sophisticated sorts of people are able to see the clothes, and so the emperor doesn't want to admit that he can't see the clothes. And then the emperor goes on parade, and none of the people who are watching the parade want to admit that they can't see the clothes, because nobody wants to admit, well, I'm a fool who's unable to see these fine clothes. But the innocent child says, what? The emperor's wearing no clothes. So that's the innocence, is just to see what is, unburdened by everything that we've learned. Because if you think about it, what is this? You know, we don't want to say, we don't want to say, we don't want to admit, we don't want to, we don't want to admit to the actual, to what we actually see, because we're afraid of the implications. It has nothing to do with the, anything direct. You know, it just admitting that you don't see the clothes is not, has no direct effects. It's only the learned implication of the what what it is to experience humiliation that we then want to avoid. So, But the innocence is to be willing just to admit what it is that we actually see. So with regard to the unnecessary effort, the innocence is to continue to recognize that unnecessary effort and to see the habit to exert more effort to turn that into a problem and to try to solve it. So as I often say, if I have a fist and I realize, I become aware of the fist. So if I'm making this fist chronically and I'm not aware of it, then I'm going around my life and I'm saying, God, I got all these problems. I'm just in so much discomfort all the time and I don't know what it is. And I'm looking for I think it's my neighbor, Bill. Bill's been causing me problems. Bill with his lawnmower and Bill with his parties and Bill, it's definitely Bill causing me this problem. And I go to war with Bill. Eventually Bill dies or Bill moves. And then well, I still have this problem. I guess it wasn't Bill, it's got to be something else. Oh, maybe it's because I've got gluten intolerance and I go on the gluten-free diet and that doesn't solve it. And I go down all of these pathways and I try all these different things. And one day I realize, isn't that interesting? I don't see anybody else has a fist all the time, but I've got a fist. I wonder what that is all about. And then start to realize, well, wow, maybe this fist is actually, come to think of it, actually, this whole time, this discomfort actually kind of was this fist is the discomfort the whole time. Okay, well, so now I'm correctly seeing that this unnecessary effort of making this fist all the time is, in fact, what's causing me all this discomfort. It has nothing to do with any of the other things that I thought it was about. But here's the problem then. Then I say, well, now there's the devil. Okay, I'm going to go to war with it. Hold on, where's my hammer? I'm going to smash it. That's not going to work. Okay, so fortunately, my wife comes along, somebody with some sense says, wait a second, don't smash your hand. What are you doing? And I said, well, I noticed that I got this problem here in my fist and I have a solution. I'm going to smash it. Solve the problem. She says, no, that's crazy now. And she talks some sense in me. I realize, okay, yeah, that would be worse. I say, well, but I got to do something. And we talk it over. Maybe we go to some specialists and everybody agrees, yeah, you got to get that fist open. I say, okay, got an idea now. I'm not going to smash it. I see the error of my ways. That would be crazy. But here, I'm going to pry it open. So I'm prying it open, and every morning I pry it open and I put some heavy objects on it and lie it flat for a while. And then I take all heavy things off and it goes back in. But say, hey, but it's going to work. Every day I do that. And maybe actually after a while it does work, but now my hand's like this. See? Okay, so I haven't really solved this. I haven't really approached it with innocence, because the innocent approach is, okay, well, gosh, I don't know. Isn't that interesting? I just don't know. But I'm curious. You watch a child who hasn't been taught not to be curious, and you'll see the child, their curiosity. They just are curious. They'll look and touch and experiment. They're so curious. They want to know. They haven't been taught that it's bad not to know. I mean, let that one in for a second. We were taught it's bad not to know. So right there, that squashes our curiosity because it was bad not to know. You can't be curious if you think it's bad not to know. If you're more interested in defending your goodness because you know, when in fact you don't, then you can't be curious, not authentically. You can only be curious when you're really willing not to know, because then you say, wow, I don't know. Now I'm really curious. So if I'm really curious now, rather than thinking about it, rather than comparing it to other things, rather than reading books about it, rather than going to other experts to tell me about it, I'm going to observe my experience and experiment with great enthusiasm. That does not mean that I'm going to instantly figure it out. I might experiment with prying, but I'm going to be experimenting rather than just insisting. I know the answer. Everybody got it. I figured it out. I'm going to pry it open, hold it flat. That's going to solve the problem. I'm curious now. Okay, well, oh, that's interesting. That does that. Every time I pry it open, it goes right back. So now I'm learning. I'm not trying to solve a problem. I'm learning. I'm curious. That's the innocent approach. The innocent approach does not know the devil as the devil. And that seems terrifying. I mean, to me, that seems terrifying. Doesn't it seem terrifying to you not to know the devil? Don't you want to know the devil? I mean, I don't mean like know the devil in the biblical sense, but I mean, don't you want to be able to identify the devil? You don't want, we've been hurt. And so we think, well, I've got to know who the devil is and what the devil is so that I can stay safe. I don't want to be tempted by the devil, hurt by the devil. I don't want to be made to suffer because I've been lured by the devil into temptation and then eternal damnation. I want to know that's the devil. Stay away from that bad thing. But the child doesn't know. The innocent child doesn't know. Why would they? And you realize they don't know because it's made up. So then we can be curious. Now, the thing about curiosity is, okay, so there's a difference between us and children. So we're not saying be like children in all ways. I'm not saying become short in stature. So this is a funny thing. We get these we see so it's like the difference between we see it, there's this description of something, and then we think, oh, well, if I can just replicate that, then I'll have that experience, whatever that is. So we think, oh, well, I've read about Buddha and learned about Buddha, and I think I know I'm going to do it just like Buddha. I'm going to be just like Buddha. I'm going to cut my hair like Buddha. I'm going to wear the robes like Buddha. I'm going to eat what Buddha ate. I'm going to say the words that Buddha said. I'm going to learn to speak the same language. I'm going to get my makeup done like Buddha. And then I'll be like, and then I'll become Buddha. So then we say here, be like the child. Oh, okay. But obviously we can, what does that mean? We can take that way too far. Have surgery to become shorter, take some kind of, I'm sure somebody could develop some drugs, some sort of therapy that would cause you to regress and become like a child. But uh, no, that's not, we don't want that. There's a certain quality of innocence, of curiosity, of not knowing. And that, though, is combined with our fully developed adult nervous system, and that gives us access to this whole package that we can we we can be curious, but that doesn't mean, that someone comes along and says, here, have some candy, and you just come a little closer. And if we're being lured, we don't, we can still use our critical faculties, like, wait a second, seems a little odd, don't think I'm going to do that. You still get to do that. You don't have to have this sort of naive, magical thinking. You can still use your critical faculties. You can still use caution. But so, you got some stabbing pains in the chest. Maybe you could go get that checked out at the hospital. I'm not saying you don't do that. I'm just saying, while it's happening, while you're on your way, while you're there, be curious. Because the mind is going to tell you just what it always tells you. It says, oh, this is the devil. What weapon am I going to use? I'm saying, well, isn't that exhausting? Working so hard to keep yourself divided, working so hard to keep yourself separated, working so hard to generate problems and then try to solve the problems. And you don't know. That's the truth, is you don't know. Happens all the time. People say the thing that was the worst thing was the best thing. Happens all the time. People say the worst thing was the best thing. They got cancer, it was the best thing. They lost all their money, it's the best thing. Does that mean, but see, then there you go. Then the mind says, oh, well, so does that mean I've got to, if I give away all my money, will that be good? If I give myself cancer, will that be good? No. It's not because cancer is good. It's not because losing all your money is good. It's the that when we're awakened from our stupor of constant warfare, battle with the devil, all the ongoing effort to divide ourselves, then we are given this gift of clarity of, who am I? Because the identity of being the one battling with the devil, it's not very fulfilling. It's not a very fulfilling identity. So I see another comment here. Let me take a look. Says, I think a sense of urgency to do well with high intensity work can sometimes make me drive away from being curious to be gripped of the gripped hand. It's like the gripped hand gripped by another hand. It's a little bit clear that it is additional compounding effort. Yeah. So um, it's true that for most of us, when we're uh, so there, it's true for most of us that initially it is much easier to be curious uh, under certain circumstances. And I'm not going to pretend to know exactly why that is, but I can speculate that it has a lot to do with the that this is something that is a capacity that is cultivated within the nervous system. And so uh, just like any other thing, like riding a bike, I mean, anything that you learn, you go from not knowing how to do that to mastery. And along that, usually we we learn best going from zero to a little bit under certain kinds of conditions that allow us to feel relatively safe. You know, I mean, it's like it might be hard to learn to ride a bicycle if you're in a war zone and bombs are dropping. Might be a little challenging. It's a lot easier to learn, probably, to learn to ride a bicycle if you've got a really nice, smooth surface and you have a relatively safe existence and you're fed and you're cared for and you got mommy and daddy there to help you through the learning process. That's probably gonna be a lot easier than you're left on your own in a war zone with bombs dropping on a rough, rocky surface with a bike that's only got one wheel. You know, I mean, that's probably going to be a lot harder. So, in the same way, if you want to learn or relearn curiosity, it's going to be a lot easier, most likely, to begin doing that under certain circumstances. So, to make the time for that, don't and by the way, to make the time for that, you just make time for it a lot because you'll find that those circumstances exist throughout your day. Because that high intensity work, nobody can sustain the high intensity work for that long. You you've got to have breaks, and during those breaks, there's the opportunity. You know, you got to break for lunch. You got to break for you know, restroom break, cigarette break. Not people don't do that anymore these days. A vape break. But you know, whenever you got those little breaks, and then there's the opportunity. So what does that look like? It looks like just kind of how we started out this meeting. Just take the time just to be here and to notice and observe your experience, and you start to notice, oh, isn't that interesting? Things you hadn't noticed before. And the more you do it, the more you become able to do that under all kinds of circumstances, even during uh, intense work. Because again, I'm not going to profess to know exactly why this is, but I will speculate. It's an educated guess uh, that um, the that as you cultivate that skill, it becomes encoded into a part of the nervous system that can function uh, simultaneous to other activities in the brain. Because there are parts of the nervous system that are involved in certain kinds of focus. And so when you're first learning to do something, it probably requires a certain kind of focus. And so you have probably limited capacity for that kind of focus. And so if you have to give that kind of focus for the cultivation of curiosity, and you have to have that kind of focus for your uh, intense work, then you can only do one or the other. But as you cultivate that skill of curiosity, then that shifts to a different part of the nervous system that can function at the same time. It's like you can talk and walk at the same time. But if you lost those functions, like if a person has a stroke, I don't know this for sure because I'm not an expert on this, but I'll virtually guarantee a person who has a stroke who loses the ability to walk and talk, they're not going to be walking and talking at the same time straight away. But they can regain both of those functions. And then once they regain them, they can begin to do them simultaneously again. So in the same way, cultivate this skill of curiosity or presence. And then as that becomes more familiar, it shifts to a different part of the nervous system so that it can function. It's a more I would say it's a more efficient, it's got to be much more efficient. It's a much more efficient way of functioning, but it also, um, there's a trade-off. Okay, so for example, with anything, if you slow it down, anything that you already know how to do, if it's shifted into that part of the nervous system, then the trade-off is that it's there. There, what's encoded into the nervous system are certain patterns. So you learn a way to do it. And if that way of doing it is very efficient, then that's great. But if it's not the most efficient, then you will benefit from slowing it down. When you slow it down enough, it comes back into under the domain of the part of the nervous system that requires this kind of focused uh, learning. Which is why you, if you're going up and down the stairs and you suddenly slow it down a lot, you might find that you becomes awkward and you start tripping because the nervous system has an encoding, a program for how to go up and down stairs. If you slow it down enough, you pop out of that program, and then you've got beginner's mind. Like, wait a second, this is really weird. I know I can go up and down stairs, but I don't know how to go up and down stairs. I mean, so I think beginner's mind is actually beginner's mind probably actually can function on several levels. It's an interesting thing. There's probably like pure beginner's mind and then meta beginner's mind. It would be interesting, somewhat interesting to see if that's true. I think that's true based on my experience. But the meta beginner's mind, as I'm using that, is like programmed beginner's mind. It's just a certain kind of capacity of spacious presence that doesn't require the kind of intense curiosity of pure beginner's mind. So I would say it's useful to have both, but you have to start with pure beginner's mind. You have to really just cultivate pure beginner's mind. That's always, I think that's the foundation of all of it. That's why I'm saying you can just go to war with the devil, but you're unhappy with that. You got to tell the truth about it. That's not giving you what you want. So then, to this, you know, rather dramatic metaphor I was using of having to lean in and listen to the whisper of the devil, it's like that's intense, pure beginner's mind. Because what's happening is you're bringing into the heat of this intense presence everything that's there, like behind the scenes, that you've been trying to avoid, right? It's the devil. You've been trying to avoid it. When you bring it into the heat of this intense beginner's mind, then all of a sudden you're very intensely aware of all of the things that you've been trying to avoid. And so it's very powerful because you are forcing yourself to really discover what it is. Up until that moment, you just used to say, look, it's the devil, it's bad, got to get rid of it. It's anxiety, it's bad, got to get rid of it. It's pain, it's bad, I've got to get rid of it. It's depression, it's bad, I've got to get rid of it. It's those liberals, they're bad, I've got to get rid of them. It's taxes, it's bad, I got to, whatever it is. It's just a program, trigger and response. But when you bring it into the heat of this intense beginner's mind, then you're really intimately present with the experience and you're seeing it and feeling it and sensing it, and you don't know what it is. There's that conditioned mind which is screaming, it's the devil, run away, stab it. But here you are, you're like, I really want to hear what the devil has to say. And so you're putting yourself into this, and you can feel it, it's vibrating. Man, if it's not vibrating, then you're doing it wrong. We work really hard to not tremble, because trembling is a sign of fear or weakness or something bad that we're told. Hold yourself together. Don't be a crybaby. Be a big boy. All these messages we received. And so we work really hard to avoid that. So we try to distance ourselves. But when you're here, you're going to feel it. It's vibrating. Step right into it. Lean in close. And you feel it, it's trembling. This is what I've been running from. This is what I've been trying to get rid of. This is what I thought was bad. This is what's going to destroy me. I'm sure of it, but I can't run anymore. I can't go to war anymore. I'm just exhausted. So you got to, when you're doing it right, you will feel it. There have been times where I started stuttering from the intensity of it. literally shaking. But then you realize, wow, how much effort does it require to keep that under control? And I wonder why I've been so exhausted and irritable. It's a lot of work to keep that under control, that trembling and that stuttering and the and it's been there the whole time because it's so familiar. So familiar. It's not like where did this come from? It's like, whoa, yeah, this has been here. And so then realize, wow, the amount of effort going into trying to lock this down, the amount of rigidity in the body to hold it together. And then on top of all that, to numb ourselves to it. It's a lot of work. So okay. So when we experience pain, they're different degrees, it's like temperature. So when it's cold, it's numb and depressed. When it's a little just smidgen warmer, which is not to suggest warm, but maybe just cool versus cold, then it's like you start to have a sense of, oh, there's something underneath that. There's like some anger underneath that. So you go from pain and well, maybe numb and depressed, and then there's like anger and pain. And then as it gets a little warmer, then maybe the pain intensifies, and then it's that anger is like seething, bubbling. And so you can see why when we've moved into this frozen, frigid range, which is what we've been taught to do. Sit still, keep yourself under control, hold yourself together, be a big boy, don't cry, be brave for mommy. Bite your tongue. Don't misbehave, you're going to get a spanking. Of course, nobody does that anymore, but if you're misbehaving, you're not going to get your 1 hour without your iPhone. And so we learn frigid, 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 colder, 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 colder. Is that we're rewarded for that. So then as we start to heat up, then that's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. It's very, very uncomfortable. Especially in this culture, because there's no, people don't have much tolerance for what they perceive to be anger. I'll tell you that. So it warms up and then it gets more uncomfortable. So what do people do? They say, I gotta cool back down. But we're talking about leaning in and listening to the devil whispering in your ear. If you can stay cool, calm, and collected while that's going on, then you are dead. You see, you are shaking inside. You're vibrating. If you're alive, this heats you up because you because everything that you have worked so hard to avoid, here it is, and it's moving. I mean, no, who? So when you hear about things that are appealing to you in the in whatever sense, uh, what outcome do you want in your life? Do you want to just be cool, calm, collected, still, dead, cold, refrigerated, on ice? Probably not. You probably want to be joyful, vibrant, vibrating, electric. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Right? The In the beginning was the Word. What is the Word? It's a vibration. It's not, in the beginning was deadness, cold, very cold. That's not so appealing. So if we're alive, we're vibrating, and when we lean in and we lean into that presence, to pure, intense beginner's mind, we will vibrate. And I'm not saying you're going to be rolling in the aisles kind of vibrating, although you might, but I'm just saying you're going to be vibrating. You're going to feel it. If you don't feel it, then you're cold. You're still refrigerated. You got to get yourself out of the refrigerated unit and closer to the fire and warm up a little bit. And then you feel it. You can feel it inside you. There's a vibration. It doesn't have to be exaggerated. You don't have to be ooh, shaking all over the place, but you can feel it. You can feel it inside you. The cells in your body are vibrating. The energy moving through your nervous system is vibrating. Your thoughts are vibrations. The sensations are vibrations. So if you're sensing or thinking, there's vibration. It's just that when we're at the refrigerated end of the spectrum, then it's all this cool, calm, collected, rational, problem solving sort of thing. That's a very dense, contracted state. So it's vibrating, but it's just doesn't feel so good. But then as we warm up, then you start to feel it. You feel it. It's vibrating. It's not, you're not so interested in the level of thought anymore. The level of thought is whatever. It's boring. You, from this pure beginner's mind, it's just, wow, that's not what I thought. My thoughts aren't what I thought. So then you're open to the pure vibration of it. That's much more interesting. In the beginning was the Word, not in the beginning was the thought. The Word. It's a vibration. So you can cultivate that. Oh, you cultivate that and it's just like turning up the thermostat a little bit. Went in a different direction than I was thinking. Had no idea what I was going to say when I sat down. So that was a long monologue. Usual caveat here is that I'm recording this, so we'll go on YouTube, which will be public. So if you don't want to be seen or heard in the public recording, then don't speak. But if you would like to, if you don't mind being in the public recording and you have a question or comment or anything, it's not about sports, and preferably one that's interesting. Something that's interesting. Then feel free to speak. You can just unmute yourself, or we could just vibrate together. Well, let's give it just, let's give it, there's sometimes people are shy. So let's give just another moment for everybody to.
Joey, I have one quick question about when you with the analogy of the fist. When you made the fist and you said, let's be really curious about this.
Yeah.
Is there a point where you've held the fist so long that it just, no matter what you do, it won't open?
No.
Oh, that's good news.
No, there's
like thinking of, say, someone with arthritis.
Yeah. There's no no. I mean, there are I mean that one's just seems that one is simple, is very simple and very clear to me that no, there's no it's never too late, never ever too late. It actually is an impossibility for it to be too late. And even in extreme cases, I mean, there are you have to keep in mind that there's a there's a kind of a dominant vibration that functions on the planet, and by that is that we talk about mainstream, and there are things that people that within that dominant vibration, that's most people are entrained to that, because it's somewhat challenging not to entrain to the dominant vibration. So then from within that, of course, there are going to be many limitations. People will say, well, that's just, once it's like that, that's how it is. They'll say there's no cure for that. Nobody ever heals from that. No, it's just too late for you. And yet there's abundant evidence all around of all the exceptions to that. So they say, well, people generally exclude the exceptions, but all you need is one exception to disprove that if you say, well, anybody who, arthritis is incurable. All you need is one example of somebody who had arthritis who no longer has arthritis, and well, that's not actually true. But people who are entrained to that dominant vibration, that's likely to be their experience because they're vibrating in that way. But I mean, there are just so many examples of people who are the exceptions to all of the so-called rules. The people who, they've got stage 45 cancer of everything, who are expected to died last Thursday, and then they're miraculously cancer free. I mean, it happens. It's not you can find these in some of these cases, you can find them published in medical journals as case studies of these remarkable outcomes. The people who are proving that the dominant vibration is not the truth, it's just a vibration. And so it's never too late. It's never, nothing's ever set in stone. This is the real truth of this is it's a great mystery. And when people say they know for sure, the only thing you think you can know for sure is that nobody knows for sure. So if anybody says that they know something for sure, and it's not just that they know that nobody knows anything for sure, they don't know. They're deceiving themselves and others when they make that claim.
That's great. So part of the curiosity then is playing with the thinking that it's too late. Yeah.
Of course, because it's all connected, you see. I mean, you can notice how the thought, the belief of it's too late for me, or it's whatever, I can't, whatever those beliefs are, you can observe and you can notice how, for example, if the belief has a certain phrase to it, like it's too late for me, and just as an example, okay, so you can play with that. You can notice how that you can repeat that to yourself. It's too late for me. It's too late for me. And you can notice, yeah, that feels true. It's too late for me. It's too late for me. And then you can change, you can play around with it by like I was talking about in regard to other physical actions. Thoughts are physical actions that are taking place in a slightly subtler sense, but it's a physical action. If you slow it down or sufficiently change it, the qualities of it, it shifts to a different part of the nervous system as well. And when that happens, what the things that have been locked together with it are decoupled, and you are then able to see it in a different way. So you're just saying, it's too late for me. Yeah, that seems true. It's too late for me. Yeah, that seems true. Then you try, it's too late for me. And you notice what's different about that. And as you play around with that, it's a good way to be curious. You're just observing your experience. You'll notice that the experience is quite different when you play around with the qualities of it in that way. And then it's hard to put it back together in the same way. Because then once you've slowed it down like that, put space, change the intonation, try saying it backwards. Then when you try putting it back together in the same way as before, it's too late for me. So it's just it's odd. It doesn't seem the same anymore. It's too late for me. And you start to realize, maybe I could go back to the way that I used to do that, but it kind of would require some effort. And do I really want to do that? And you'll see there's a compulsion to try and reassemble it in the old way because that's familiar. But then you start to have a choice because you start to realize, well, before I didn't realize I had a choice. Before it just seemed like that's how it is. It's just like, that's just the truth. It's too late for me. It's not, there's no choice in that. It's just true. It's just too late for me. Everybody agrees. My children agree. My doctors agree. My financial advisors agree. My neighbors agree. Everybody agrees. It's too late for me. So we just think that that's fact. But then once we've played around with it, slowed it down, turned it around, done different things to it, then it sort of comes apart a little bit. And then we try doing it in the old way. It's too late for me. It's like, oh, that's interesting. It sounds different. It feels different. It's not the same. And yeah, it would be familiar and in some ways comfortable, although uncomfortable, but comfortable in its familiarity to go back to go back to the old way of it's too late for me because everybody seems to agree. But gosh, I don't really like that way. And now that I see that there's another way, I just wonder if I really want to do that. And then what, but this, what's really opened up then is that you don't know. I have no idea. If it's not too late for me, then wow, that's very open. What is that? What are the implications of that? What does that mean? Like everything about me is now different. Once I've disassembled that, because I start to see how my whole life was organized around it's too late for me. So am I going to do A or B? Well, clearly I'm going to do A because B would be for somebody where it's not too late for them. So my whole life has been organized around it's too late for me. The way my relationships are organized around that, my finances, my lifestyle, where I live, what I do, who I see, what I eat, everything, it's all based around, all organized around it's too late for me. Now, when I take that apart, it's like, wow, that's very open. If I don't know that it's too late for me, then, well, now everything's sort of on the table. I could do anything, could see anyone, say anything. And so that can be uncomfortable. It opens up a lot. And maybe people don't know how to respond to that because they say, wait, you're different. You're not acting like yourself.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Part of the problem then too is maybe just even finding out what those thoughts are, as they're so sort of unconscious, or will they will come up when as you.
Well, it's just, I mean, yes, they will. And also it's just one way. I mean, you don't have to work with them at that level. It's not necessarily the best way. I don't know what the best way is, but it's not, don't think that that's the only way or that it's necessarily the best way. It is a way. And it's when those beliefs do become, as they will. I mean, if you're observing, you'll start to notice that those have been operating at that level unconsciously, largely, and driving things. You'll just start to become more aware of them at the level of thought, and then you can play with them. And then, but deeper than that, always really is just the felt sense of it, because you'll notice that, I mean, ultimately the words are just sounds. So, uh, if you didn't, those words don't have any inherent meaning. But what gives the juice to it is the feeling that you have that's paired with that. So it's too late for me. Well, there's a lot of things that get paired. It's images, memories, feelings, emotions, words. They all get put together. And so you can pull it apart from any which way, and it will all start to unravel. Um, I usually find that the feelings are more they're a little deeper in than the thoughts. The thoughts are usually just because we feel before we're able to think. So the feelings are much more primal. The thoughts are a little bit more. It's another kind of layer on top. But the feeling is what really kind of holds it together, because without the feeling, none of the rest of it would really matter. The memories wouldn't matter, the thoughts wouldn't matter, the images wouldn't matter, none of it would matter if it wasn't for the feeling. And the feeling is, I don't think it's necessary to identify the feeling with labels and say this is fear or anger or frustration or disappointment or grief or whatever. I mean, sometimes that can be valuable if it happens, but I don't think it's necessary to go trying to do that. What's more useful, I find, is really just to tune into the direct experience of the feeling, because ultimately that's what you're really interested in, because the descriptions of it and the analysis of it and the ideas about it are still a bit superficial and don't really actually give you any practical help. But once you're able to clearly sense directly the felt sense of the feeling, then you have a clear and much more leveraged way to begin to explore and interact with the feeling and that whole constellation of feeling, thought, sensation, etc. And so the feeling, let's say, I would just to go back to that same example, it's too late for me. Well, those are just sounds. It's too late for me. But what really gives that any power is this felt sense that it's so, that there's truth to this, and that it's not what that feeling is. It's not actually a response to the thought so much as it's more primary. It's just a sense. It's like a posture or an orientation to life of, well, in fact, I would say the thoughts are a description of that posture and orientation to life. So the feeling or the posture is primary, and then the thoughts are more a description. So it's too late for me, and then I can notice what what is it that those thoughts are actually describing in my more intimate experience? And I can start to notice, oh yeah, there's this sort of cringing, feeling in the front side of the body. I mean, I'm not saying this has to be your experience. I'm just giving an example. And it's this contracted, cringing, uh, somewhat numb feeling. And so then I have this more direct sense of what it is that's really going on. And that's more like the example with the fist, because then rather than trying to work at it at a from the outside in, I can really feel into it from the inside out, and I can really notice how it is that I do it. So I'm not trying to I'm not trying to produce an external result that looks like an open hand. I'm actually interested only in the inner felt sense and the awareness of how it is that I do the fist, so that I can then release that, or inhibit, in the sense, inhibit meaning in sort of in the most pure literal sense, it's not an action, it's the inhibition of the action. So not restraint, but just not doing through awareness. So then I'm tuning into this feeling, noticing, okay, here's this sort of cringing sensation. Now I'm really wanting to feel into that at a much lower level, a deeper, more intimate level, and start to notice how I do that. I can't think my way to that. I have to really just feel into it. And that's why, I say, when you lean in and listen to the devil whispering the devil's message, it's like that. Here it is all along, this feeling, this posture, this orientation, this way of holding oneself and reacting. All along, it's been at the core of this, and I was overlooking it, and I was doing battle with all of these outer manifestations, only interested in the, well, not only interested, but thinking that if I could make things look right on the outside, that would fix my experience. But actually, I was always overlooking the intimacy of this experience. So I have to get really intimate. I have to lean in close, and I have to listen, and I have to sense for how I'm doing it. Because if I want to hear this message, I actually have to soften tremendously. So I have to be so curious and attentive that it's so far below the level of thought. It's so much subtler than the level of thought. So it's way beyond any thinking. I'm actually, well, yeah, it's like all of these primitive aspects of ourselves that we were taught to separate and shame and push away. Uh, We can't get rid of them. They're part of us. So so the real message, by the way, I mean, you'll hear it in your own way. So I don't want to ruin it for you by giving it to you in words that are not exactly right for you. But at the heart of it is this discovery of it was never separate. It was never the enemy. And this intimacy is what's required. So we have to become very, very, very subtle. And we just keep allowing that curiosity to take us to subtler and subtler levels of perception so that we can experience directly how it is that we have generated this false sense of separation, this false sense of good and evil. And we then explore opening to this very intimate, unified experience through softening, through release of effort.
Thank you. Thank you, Julian.
Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Good questions.
Mhm.
All right.
Joey, could I ask a question following on from Una, please?
Yeah.
So these sensations arise, in my experience, by whatever's happening in this moment, be it pain, frustration, anger. And I choose to open to those experiences. And what I'm noticing is, you use this word subtlety. And to me, there seems to be a more subtle noticing. There can be noticing, and there can be, I feel a deeper sense of experiencing that's here now in the body, that you've touched on today, the vibration that's going on in the body. And that if I open enough, is that I become that vibration. It's not like I'm sort of curiously looking at the vibration. There's almost a deeper experience to be had, in that I become that vibration that can be of, huge intensity at times.
Right.
So I'm asking you, is that?
That sounds like, it sounds similar to my experience. Yeah. I mean,
Right.
I think you can know for yourself if I think a good not thinking the right word, but a good guideline, I guess I'll say, would be that in that sense of merger, or that's a fair term to use, then then I would expect that the experience would be one that you would generally regard as positive. Not necessarily prior to that, but from the point of merger onward, I would expect that you would regard that as positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the sense of positive because I feel I've surrendered. I'm not armoring. There might still be armoring, actually, there might be.
But does it?
Because as we do the somatic work, or as if I'm sitting still, when you, and I think, who spoke first, was it? I don't know, somebody made a comment on this, the wanting to soften the tensions, the enemy, by wanting to soften so much. And I think there's a tendency for me to do that. You're sitting still, you've got aches here, aches there, everywhere, and you're wanting to soften, and there's that subtle expectancy of having release from your aches and pains.
Yeah. But it's often a the difficulty is that often what, at least my experience is, what I think, so I come at it initially, I'm judging, oh, there's that ache and pain, that's bad, that's my problem, I got to get rid of that, that's my goal now, I'm going to be trying to get rid of that. And so everything is organizing around that being the enemy, and I'm trying to get rid of that. When there's finally that merger, or that a deeper sense of relief, what I find is that what I discover then is that it was not what I thought. It's like I usually had it inverted. I think that I've identified the problem, and I think I know what that is, where it is, why it is, and then I'm wondering why is, I'm working really hard to release this, why is it still bothering me so much? And then whenever there's finally a relief from that, what I discover is, oh, because it wasn't that. This is difficult to explain, but so this isn't exactly it, but it's just to give kind of a gross level example, just to maybe make sense of it. Let's say I'm certain, I'm thinking, I've got this discomfort in my left hip, and I know that that's the problem. I know there's got to be tension there, and I'm working at letting go and softening, and why is it still bothering me so much? And then by some grace, there's a shift, merger, release of some kind, but it's different than, it's not at all what I thought. And come to find out, oh, the tension wasn't there. That wasn't it. I thought it was, I was convinced it was, but come to find out, all along, I had myself all skewed. It was really just I don't know, like my left ear was doing something weird. Or my right ear was doing something weird. And all of a sudden, like I say, by this act of grace, there's this sort of release or something that happens there, and then everything is reconfigured, and I realize, oh, well, that's why, because I was insisting it was something that it wasn't. I thought it was, I was convinced. I thought that I knew what the truth was, and my truth was wrong.
Yes, and I think that's you're saying, or what you're saying is my experience. If I've got this pain and I'm thinking it's tension and I think soften, there's a subtlety in wanting, even though I'm not actually moving to soften up, there's a subtlety to do something. Yeah. Whereas I found when I am in pain that your words of doing nothing, actually doing absolute, not even trying to soften,
yeah,
but doing nothing. And sometimes I will cheat a little bit in the sense of I'll look for a part of my body that isn't hurting at all. Mm-hmm. And that can be often my arm. Mm-hmm. And if I just focus on that, just that in itself has mm-hmm. proved quite useful in actually loosening something up and changing my experience. I won't say it's gone away, the pain, but it's changed the experience. Yeah. To something that is reasonably okay.
Yeah. Well, also because what I've noticed is the more that I'm insisting that I know what the problem is, the more you've kind of suggested the same. The more I'm in some way, even if I am not, I'm actively trying not to, but I'm still creating more resistance there. And so what I find is then that by doing that, I'm not only creating more resistance there, but everywhere. But I'm overlooking that because I'm so fixated on this one thing. And when there's a shift or an expansion, then that by some mystery, man, I can't even really explain it other than just I've experienced it so many times. By some mystery, I'm open to a discovery of greater ease. And it's not something that I could do. That's the thing. That's why do nothing is useful, because it's not something I can do. To do nothing really is I have to be willing to give up. And when I'm really faced with that, then I realize how hard I'm fighting not to give up, even though I think, oh yeah, I'm trying to surrender, but then I really look at it as like, wow, that's a lot of hard work there. So we're very sophisticated tricksters. We trick ourselves into believing so sincerely that we're doing it right, that we're doing surrender correctly, and then when we just catch a glimpse of ourselves in the mirror and we see how hard we're trying to surrender, then maybe we ease up.
Yeah. I just thought I'd share that experience.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We need some more grace.
Oh, you got so much grace. There's no shortage of grace. There's a endless abundance of grace. It really is, what I just said is it's so true. You can just imagine that you are looking at your reflection. You don't have to actually look at a reflection of yourself in the mirror. Just imagine you're looking at a reflection of yourself in the mirror, and just notice what you would see. You know, you're like, I'm trying so hard. You'll see it. And that's the only thing, I mean, nothing can truly block grace, but that's the only thing that can really come close. Certainly greatly, you know, the grace is that pure vibration that's so expansive and subtle, and then but through all of our effort, it becomes compressed. So it's like it becomes frigid. We have to, like, we can't get grace. We have to be gotten by grace. We have to to really receive grace. We have to be willing to vibrate at that same frequency. I think that's the challenge. Is we say, I need grace, because I do this, you know, I need grace to come in and help me, but I gotta maintain my protective shell. And no, you gotta vibrate at that same frequency, and then you receive, because you're like a fish in the water. We're swimming in grace. We're holding our breath. So we just need to breathe at that frequency, breathe at that vibration of receiving. All right. I am going to have lunch. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you.
See you next time.